Another increase in visitors increases criminal activity and wealthy tourists present tempting targets. There was this one time, I have a friend na lokal ng Saudi. He is a Saudi. He visited to the Philippines. So, bago siya pumunta dito sa Pilipinas, nagtanong-tanong na din siya sa mga Pilipino doon sa Pilipinas. And then, one time, nag-message siya sa akin. Hey, my friend. Sabi niya, hey, my friend, bakit lahat ng tinatanungan ko kung ano ang dapat kong dalhin sa Pilipinas, ang sinasabi sa akin, ingatan ko yung gamit ko, huwag akong magdala ng madaming valuables. Bakit ganun lahat? Well, it's reality din na because of temptation presented by tourists, dahil dun sa mga gamit nila, tumataas din yung crime rate dito sa Pilipinas. Try na, dun sa mga airports natin, laging merong paalala doon, pagdating mo pa lang, dun pa lang sa boarding gate. Always mind your valuables. Do not leave your valuables unattended. So, dun pa lang, nagbibigay na siya ng impression na dito sa Pilipinas, nagkakaroon ng krimen because of temptation posed by tourists. And last, negative demonstrative effects. One of the major results of negative demonstrative effects is the polarization of the host from the tourists, which happens in a number of ways. Tourists often demand commodities and facilities beyond the economic capacity of local residents. The social norms of the tourists that are very different from the local customs give rise to social problems. Like, for example, values and materialism of young travelers are copied by the young local people. Importation of foreign workers from more developed countries. So these are changes in the consumption patterns in some tourist areas. So, impact control measures, let's just have a rundown of this one. Reducing the contact between the host and guests by limiting the carrying capacity of the destinations and by regulating the tourist flow. And that is actually happening in Boracay. Before you can enter the island of Boracay, you must have reserved your slot because meron silang certain number of carrying capacity na pinapapasok sa island ng Boracay. Next, separating the host and tourist within tourist enclaves and tourism development zones. Next, designing community education and citizen involvement programs centered on tourism and hospitality development, policy, and regulatory issues. You have to educate your locals how to cope up with changes brought by tourism and hospitality developments. Expanding human resource development and training programs in all components of the tourism and hospitality system to include social skills to your employees. So those are the impact control measures to cope up with social negative impacts of tourism and hospitality. So the third one would be the cultural impacts. Tourism and hospitality increases the acculturation process as well as the cultural convergence of people. So let's define the two terms that were highlighted on that statement. The first one is acculturation. Acculturation are those changes that occur in a culture through borrowing from other cultures. These changes may include technology, language, and values. So, of course, technology, very obvious naman na yan that we have a lot of adopted technology from other countries. And one factor of that adaptation would be tourism and hospitality. Next, you have the language. So, meron tayong mga slang terms which are derived from other languages, foreign languages, and also values. Cultural convergence naman, this is the tendency of the world cultures to be more alike. Pag sobra na yung acculturation, nagkakaroon na ng cultural convergence. If you have already experienced 70% acculturation, most probably there will be a cultural convergence already. Now let's talk about the specific positive cultural impacts of tourism. The first one, intercultural communication. Mobility, which is a prerequisite of tourism and hospitality, mobility would be the transportation, is necessary for different social groups, nationalities, and cultures to meet and interact. So this may contribute to the removal of social or national prejudices and the promotion of better understanding and positive social change. So, na-discuss na din yan, connected kasi ang cultural and social. So, na-discuss na yan, na nawawala yung mga judgment natin, prejudgment natin, through understanding of one's culture, one's norms, and one's attitude. So, cross-cultural communication, this promotes changes in local culture while preserving or revitalizing local ethnic and cultural identity. So, um, ito yung situation that cross-cultural communication happens when a certain group of people understand the culture or the norms of another group of people without losing their own identity. So without sacrificing their identity culturally, they are also able to understand one's culture or one's social norm. Another, renaissance of native culture, because of the urge of one group of people to showcase their tradition, to showcase their culture, mas na-encourage sila, mas na-motivate sila na i-bring back or ibalik yung mga magagandang tradition na yon through tourism and hospitality. And there is only one negative cultural impact of tourism, and that is the loss or deteriorating of traditional art and culture. While tourism and hospitality enable different people to restore and maintain interest in their own culture, it has also led to the destruction of countries' work of art through the commercialization of culture. Ano ba ang tinatawag nating commercialization of culture? Yung ginagawa natin, yung kultura natin, ginagawa yung tradition natin para lang mabenta ito sa mga turista. On the first place, traditions are there for relevant reasons. For example, we do kanyaw to ask guidance from up above or to celebrate something, to give thanks to yung mga gods natin. O kaya we do Flores de Mayo to honor the celebration of Virgin Mary. However, gusto lang nating i-showcase ang Flores de Mayo, we do it on different months. Like we do it during August. Flores de Mayo nga, flowers of May. So make sure that when you perform certain culture, perform certain tradition, make sure na you are doing it on the right reasons or for the right reasons. The increasing demand for artifact has led to changes in its form and functions as art objects. Even model cultural villages may be encouraging the loss of culture because of tourists who want to keep up with schedules, as well as entertainment and require shorter and therefore less authentic activities. In this way, entertainment loses its cultural values. One example of this would be yung traditional clothes ng mga Igorot. There is a certain way of wearing those clothes. However, in Wright Park, in certain parks in Baguio City, sinusuot ng turista yon for picture-taking purposes lang, without minding the proper usage of those garments. So the architectural designs of most international hotels are of Western style and often exhibit little knowledge and appreciation of the social traditions of local inhabitants. One good example for this one would be in Vigan, doon sa Calle Crisologo, in Vigan City, the historic city of Vigan. They were able to um, withstand yung deteriorating of traditional art and culture by how? By imposing to establishments a certain architectural design, which is the usage of capis,